Hi there guys, and welcome to Jonesy's Question Time episode 17, and once again you have not let me down guys. You sent in a mass selection of questions, so much so I'm already looking to next week with some of the questions. I've already got 3 for next week. So Freddie, well, I'm answering one of your questions this week, but you've got one to answer next week, and Steve from Twitter, I will also be answering yours next week, so don't worry, I haven't forgotten about your questions. But anyway, yeah, let's get straight into this week's questions, and let's start with Rated R Legend Killer 10, who has asked me, what would be your Leeds United started 11 using past and present players? This has been such a tough one to do, so much so I've actually kind of noted all these down before, because obviously starting supporting Leeds United in 1996, we've gone through quite the amount of players, and I could pick so many, to be honest. It's well, to be honest, at first when I started going through it, I realised I was literally just picking the entire Champions League squad. So I thought I would kind of, change it up a little bit. There's certain ones in here that I might not have put in, but just for the sake of using past and present players, I thought, well, actually, I say present players. There is not one single present player who plays at the moment, so I don't know. Anyway, I'll talk you through it. So anyway, first of all, goalkeeper, I've gone for Nigel Martin. Sort of my original goalkeeper. He's a guy who was keeping when I started supporting the club. It was a close call going between him and Paul Robinson, but for me at the time, Nigel Martin was just the most immense shot stopper. I mean, for those of you that remember or that might have seen one particular game away at AS Roma, where we drew 0-0, I believe, in the UEFA Cup at the time. And he just kept pulling off the most amazing saves, and I think he must have won man of the match, because he was just on top form that night. And yeah, such a nice guy as well. Met him a couple of times off the field, and yeah, such a genuinely nice guy. But what a top goalkeeper he was. Then in defence, right back, I've got Gary Kelly, because, well, I had to, really. Kelly was just the ultimate right back, and I mean quite rightly so that he was in the team for as long as he was. He earned himself a testimonial whilst he was at the club, and he was just kind of one of those ever-present fixtures really in the team. Fantastic in defence, brilliant at getting forward and storming down the right wing, got so many crosses into the box, creating so many goals. Even chipped in with the odd goal himself. I'm particularly thinking of that goal against Wigan in the League Cup that time. That was just one of the most amazing times. Then on to centre packs. Yes, the central packs. Onto the centre backs, I've gone for Lucas Radebe for obvious reasons. I really don't need to go into detail why Lucas Radebe, the chief, is in my team there. Next team, I've then gone for David Weatherall. Actually, again, he was in central defence when I started supporting the club, and in one of my very first games there, he scored that famous header against Man United when we beat them 1-0 at Ellen Road. But just looking back, I had old season review tapes from 93, 94, 95, etc., and just seeing Weatherall in that team there, he was a fantastic centre back, and he was one that got involved in scoring quite a few goals as well. But he was just a good leader in the central pack. I was nearly going to put Robert Molinar, just because of how much of a beast he was, but yeah, I decided to go for Weatherall after considering everything. And then at left back, technically speaking, I never actually with my own eyes saw him play at Leeds United, but he was at the club when I started supporting them, and that is Tony Dorigo. I was going to put Ian Hart, because he was a good left back, but there were times where he did struggle defensively. And he was a little bit weak. I mean, as brilliant as he was at scoring his free kicks and his goals and chipping in that way, just defensively he did let himself down a few times. So for me, Dorigo is really the last decent left back that we had, and just go and watch some of his some videos on YouTube of him. He was such an amazing left back, defensively amazing, and getting forward he was just fantastic. So for me, Dorigo is the left back. Going into midfield, I'm starting to kind of change it up a little bit. I've gone for Snoddy. Gone for Snoddy on the right side. Well, again, everyone knows the class that Snodgrass had. He could be a frustrating player at times, but all in all, the skill that he had, taking on players, his goal scoring ability, just everything about him, he was just a class midfielder, and he's one of those players that, God, you just wish that we had right now. So I've gone for Snoddy. Oh, just knocked the microphone there. Also gone for, moving into centre mid, gone for Olivier Dacour. He's one of these players that kind of often gets forgotten about, I suppose because he wasn't really in the team that long. But for me, he was the ultimate sort of central midfielder. He was one who got stuck in. He didn't care, he never shrugged out of any challenges or anything. He would get forward. He was an amazing passer of the ball. He would get back and help out in defence, and again he would chip in with some class goals as well. I remember, I think it was his first goal, where he scored a free kick against Arsenal. It did take a slight deflection, but I always remember that one. And yeah, it was just one of these players that would give 110% for you every single game. So for that reason, I put Olivier Dacour in the side. Next to him, I've got Lee Bowyer. He was one of those that could be played really anywhere in midfield. You'd often see him out wide, but you saw him in the centre as well. And again, just a no-nonsense, give it everything kind of player. He would get stuck in challenges, as everyone knows, again, and would help out in defence. But really, he came into his own when he was attacking. Created so many goals for the team, scored a hell of a lot as well. I mean, I think he won Player of the Year twice in his time at Leeds United, and rightly so. I mean, it was very sad how everything kind of came to an end for him, and some of the things that did happen in his time at the club. But he was a cracking player, so I've put Bowyer there. And on the left side, I've gone for Max Gradel. Just because his attacking ability was just one of the best I'd seen at the clubs. His speed, his skill, he wasn't afraid to take players on. He possibly let himself down a little bit in defence, but again, he didn't mind getting stuck in either, and his work rate was just non-stop for the team. In this midfield, I could have gone for Sam Byram. But really, I think we need to see more of him this season in that attacking role in midfield, because obviously we're used to him at right back. But it's looking positive for him this season in midfield, and I think he's going to have a really good season. So yeah, putting those four in midfield, but could quite easily have put a few more in. And then up front, I've had to go for Jermaine Beckford. Again, he could have been a very frustrating player. He didn't win much in the air. Sometimes you might question his work rate, but just for his pure goal scoring talent and the skill that he had, he just has to be in there. He really does. He was just one of the most natural goal scorers I've seen at the club. And next to him, a similar style type of player, but someone who had a bit more about him, a lot more strength, and definitely won everything in the air, and that is Mark Viduka. He had such an impact at the club. I mean, I didn't know him when he signed for Leeds, coming from Celtic. I'd never heard of him before, but wow, what an impact he had at Leeds United. His goal scoring record kind of shows for itself. But like I say, again, his work rate, he was a massive guy, so his strength was a big part of his game, but he did have a bit of speed. If he needed to get going, he had a lot of speed there. And again, his ability to score a goal out of nothing was just insane, and those 4 goals against Liverpool that very sunny afternoon will just be something that always sticks with me. So yeah, that's a long start to this question time video, but there we go. Rated our Legend Killer 10. That is my sort of top Leeds United starting 11 from the time that I've been supporting the club. Anyway, like I said, there were so many other players that I could have put in there, but those are the ones that I've decided on at the end. So thank you very much for your question there, pal. Moving on to something completely different now. Herbie Howard has said, what's your take on online dating, and have you tried it? If so, any success? Well, first of all, I'm going to say no success. So yeah, I have tried it, and I've been on a fair few just to try them out, really. I mean, there's so many out there, and some of them are so annoying in the sense of the money that they ask you to put in. They kind of advertise themselves as this kind of free thing, but basically you can't do anything on it unless you pay like a monthly subscription thing, which is just so cheeky, and it's just exploiting lonely people, really, like myself. But yeah, it's just complete exploitation, and it really does piss me off. And to be honest, I've not really found myself being a fan of any of them. Not just because I haven't had any success out of them, but just so, I mean, the Tinder one, that's the one where basically you swipe to the right if yes, and swipe to the left for no, and that's the one where you just basically base it on the first picture you see of these people. And I think that is just such a poor way of doing it. You know, you need to really know, you know, something about someone. You know, it's just purely based on looks with that. So for that reason, I really don't like that. Also, it is full of the biggest amount of spam I've ever seen. It's just ridiculous. I mean, you get them on all of them. I mean, the one that does go into a bit of detail is probably Plenty of Fish or POF. But again, that is one that exploits with, you know, getting you to spend your money for it, especially. So I mean, my take on it, it obviously does work for people, because you see that people have met through it, and maybe I would have different feelings about it if I had sort of met someone through it. I mean, the only times I have kind of started talking to people, I met people have ended up being absolute nutcases. So yeah, I don't know, it's a difficult one. I'm sure there are, you know, really good love stories out there that have come through online dating, but for me personally, you still just can't be meeting someone, you know, on a like you know, spontaneous trip out or a night out or something, and actually talking to someone first and everything, rather than doing it that way. So yeah, that's my take on online dating, Herbie. So thank you very much for that question there. James Hornet has asked, which current or past football player would you say is the best role model to young players? When it comes to role models, especially with football, I like to look at the all-round kind of thing, so obviously on the pitch but off the pitch as well, because like role models, you know, for young people to look up to, they need to have it all, really, not just be an amazing footballer, but also have that kind of good guy image off the field as well. So there's lots that you could possibly go for. For me personally, I've had to go for David Beckham. Obviously, you know, being a Man United player, he gets a lot of stick off Leeds United fans, but for me, I've always found him to be sort of a top professional. You know, obviously he was a fantastic player, that speaks for itself, but he's, you know, the way he conducts himself off the pitch as well, it is very, 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 very rare that has got himself, you know, kind of caught up in any controversies. I mean, there was one possibly where he was accused of an affair, but nothing was ever really proved of that. And apart from that, off the field, there's been nothing. On the field, obviously, early on in his career, there was the red card incident for England against Argentina at the '98 World Cup. But I think what even makes him a better role model is how he conducted himself and brought himself back round from that incident. Obviously still a young player at the time, you know, maybe a bit rash and everything, and basically the whole of England hated him at that point, but the way he conducted himself after that and got everyone back on side was really, really quite good of him. But yeah, you look at what he's done off the pitch. I mean, the amount he does for charity is amazing. You know, the football academies and coaching courses and stuff that he sets up has been really great for young players. You know, you look at his family life, he's got it all set out for him. You know, he's with, you know, obviously Victoria Beckham, who obviously music-wise gets a lot of stick, but at the end of the day, she's done enough for herself to have her own career in fashion and everything. You know, he's bringing up, is it 3 kids they've got, or 4? I can't quite remember, but you know, bringing up some great kids by the looks of it. And he seems to be someone who always has time for fans. You know, he doesn't always completely hide away from everyone. He's quite happy to meet and talk to people. Always comes across so nicely and so well in interviews. And yeah, for that reason, I think he is a fantastic role model for young players to look up to on how to conduct themselves on and off the pitch, and obviously playing wise as well. Apart from that, Lucas Radebe as well. I've spoken about him many times before, but his footballing skills were immense. And off the field, again, just the nicest guy, does everything for charity, and despite everything that he's had to go through in his life, he's constantly kept this positive outlook on everything, always wears a smile on his face. He always stopped around for autographs and meeting young fans. I remember when he used to play for Leeds United. And again, yeah, if you're a young player and you're looking for a role model on how to be on the pitch and off the pitch, Lucas Radebe, you really can't go wrong there. So yeah, there's a lot more players that people say are role models, but when you look at them, like diving and cheating and some of the things they do off the pitch and the way they conduct themselves, yeah, I don't like the idea of some players being classed as role models. So yeah, those are the two that I've chosen, James, so thank you very much for that. Future Law, my good friend Lee, has asked me, if you had to play a game of either anti-gravity ping pong or anti-gravity basketball, which would you choose? Now, with this, I think you would really, really struggle with both of them, because if you're playing anti-gravity, you think as soon as you've, hit those balls, they're just going to go flying off, and you're going to really struggle to kind of keep control of it. But I've thought about it, and I think ping pong would be the easiest one. Because I mean, if you're doing basketball and you shoot for the net, the ball is just going to keep on travelling. You're never going to get the drop on the ball. So you're either constantly going to have to go for slam dunks, or just kind of float yourself up and throw the ball downwards, which I think could be a little bit problematic. Whereas with ping pong, you're always hitting the ball to the ground, and as it's to the ground, onto the table, should I say, and as it's coming back up, the other player will be hitting it back down again. So I think you'd have slightly more control over ping pong. But to be honest, I would love to try both. It'd be fantastic, it really would. I'm not sure how everything else would have to be kind of clamped down, and you'd have to be in some kind of pulley harness kind of thing. But so yeah, I would love to try both, but I think ping pong you would have the better results out of. So thank you for that very interesting question, Lee. And finally, moving on to a question from Freddie Nelson, who has asked me, who is the best fullback in rugby league out of Zach Hardacre or Sam Tompkins? I think this is the first kind of rugby league question I've had to go into proper detail with. So, I mean, for me, obviously being a Leeds Rhinos fan for as long as I have, there is that slight bias towards Zach Hardacre, but it is a really good question, and actually, to be honest, after all of that, I would maybe have to just slightly lean towards Sam Tompkins. I mean, you look at them both. Zach Hardacre is 23, but only really came to fruition in 2011-2012 for the Rhinos, whereas Sam Tompkins is only 3 years older than Hardacre at 26, but he's kind of been around at Wigan since 2008-2009, so I class Sam Tompkins as a much more experienced fullback. And you look at the games played, Sam Tompkins has played over 180 times, Hardacre has played about 130 games. So there's not really too much in it there, but then you look at the tries. Sam Tompkins has over 150 and Hardacre has just over 90 tries, I believe. Sam Tompkins has got 526 points, whereas Hardacre has got about 300. So I mean, points wise and stats wise, obviously Tompkins has been around longer, and I think they're both very similar style players. They've both got great speed. They've both got incredible skill, and they're both quite, they're both very, very strong players as well. But I think that little bit of experience and a bit more kind of clever mind kind of takes it for Tompkins for me. Hardacre has still kind of got that youthful exuberance about him. And I think sometimes that can just let him down a little bit in games. He can get a little bit too over the top and a bit too excited, and it causes him to create a few mistakes. And obviously, kind of more recently over the past 2 seasons, it's seen him getting into a little bit of trouble on and off the field. With Sam Tompkins, I think he's just that slightly, more I mean, the fact that you see him doing stuff, you know, on TV and doing stuff for Sky Sports and everything. I think although he's only 26 and only 3 years older than Zach, he's just got an older head on him, and I think for that reason he's just a bit more consistent. And at this very moment in time, despite the fact Tompkins doesn't know what club he's going to be at next, and Hardaker is in a little bit better form, I would say at the moment in time Tompkins is probably just the better fullback, although I do think Hardaker will probably take over that role. You know, like I say, he's got a little bit more youth on his side. And I mean, it just shows, you know, Sam Tompkins has won the Man of Steel, whereas Zach Hardaker hasn't yet. Although I probably do see him winning that one day. But yeah, I think just that little bit of youthful exuberance just lets Hardaker down a little bit, and his consistency can sometimes, you know, falter a little bit. So yeah, good question, Freddie. And like I say, I will be answering your other question next week. So along the same lines, but yeah, I'll answer that next week. So thank you very much for that, Freddie. So that brings to end question time at 17 for this week, guys. So thank you very much for those varied questions you sent in there. Like I say, I've got about 2 or 3 set up for next week, but I do need plenty more questions sent in. For the past few weeks it's been the case where I'm set up for 1 week and I'm nearly already set up for the next week, so if we can keep the ball rolling on that, then that would be absolutely fantastic, because yeah, you guys are really not letting me down at the moment with that. So thank you very much, guys. If it is your first time watching, then please do leave a like and a subscribe, and also sharing as well, that would be much appreciated. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all very soon.